Hey everybody, welcome to Dirtycakes Live at 5 here Friday, the last one of August. On the show today we have Mr. Mike Watt. I'm very excited about that, and I'm also excited to tell you we have connected to the chat here today. Music Cares, so you can definitely give it to that charity. Awesome charity. Personally helped me out a lot, and also big announcements coming next month. Becky Reck will be handling the Dirtycakes Live at 5, and she'll be interviewing people. I think the first week is all people from Philadelphia, and she's going to get some people from Belgium, and she's going to get some people from all over the world because, well, she knows a whole ton of people, and she's going to make it very exciting. So we're going to have a whole different type of show, which I'm very excited about, and I hope you are too. But, yes, like I said, on today's show, we're going to have Mike Watt of the Minutemen and of the Stooges reunion and of so many other great things. I also want to say, don't forget to subscribe and make sure that you check us out on YouTube and go to your chat, to your podcast selection of choice, and you can check us out there as well. So just waiting on Mike to join the show. There he is. Hey Mike, how you doing? Let me see if I can get you in on here. All right. Let's see. Go live with Mike. There you go. We're going to get him connected here in just a minute. But once again, hey, there you go. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing today?
So glad to be aboard.
Yeah.
I've been doing some new songs for this project with this guy lives in Pedro named Todd. You probably know him. He's got that band Toys That Kill, label Recess Records. Got a pad now on 11th and Pacific here in Pedro called the Sardine.
All right.
And we have this project called Jump Started Plowhards. I've done 2 batches and working on the 4th. I haven't heard. He's got the 3rd batch in his hands now. But since middle of March, a lot of time from composing and recording.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I was gonna ask you, what have you been up to this whole time? We've been a lot of times sitting in the house, a lot of times staring at instruments. They're staring back. Gotta pick them up.
Yeah. Well, I don't use a lot of instruments, mainly, but bass interesting tool to compose with. It leaves a lot of room for the people you collaborate with. Yeah, usually I'd be torn, but Jesus, I mean, when my pop was a boy, they had the Second World War, things come into the world, into your life, and I think you just got to deal with it and not feel too sorry for yourself.
Absolutely.
As long as I don't get sick, I hobble by the water. I live in Pedro, which is the harbor of Los Angeles, right? And so crack of dawn, I do about 3 1/3 mile hobbling around. Nobody down there. If there is, you can see them a mile away, so you can stay away. I got this elliptical trainer thing.
Nice.
So, yeah, because the ankles, I can't do too much off.
Right, of course.
The other day, I got to trade off. And also these they got, you hold on, so you don't have to worry about falling. I'm 62 now, so I got to, if I don't stay a little active, I'll freeze up.
Well,
and that goes with playing too, with the bass and stuff. You got to keep it going. We just, you get dealt a hand, and this is, instead of just pissing and moaning and belly aching, I just trying to. A radio show, right? Watford Pedro Show. I've done for 19 years. Usually once a week when I'm not on tour. But since March, three a week.
3 a week.
There's a lot of people out making music,
Yeah.
So every show I've done since has had a guest. Using Skype, and would come over to Watt's bed. In fact, I haven't been with Brother Matt since March. But in a way, I just think the music thing is healthy.
You know, it's what you got to be doing. You know, like we've been doing the same thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. Just like everybody I know, like musicians just all seem to be doing stuff. I was talking to this guy who you and him have a very similar look. His name is Jeff Nolan. He played in I Love You. He also works with Rock. I don't know if you know him, but he's now picking up a theremin gig for Blue Oyster Cult, which is fun. You know, because he's the theremin player for Buck. And you know, we've been releasing records too, and I think it's just like it's a great opportunity. You know, as much as being musicians, we love being on the road and doing stuff. It's a great chance to take advantage and collaborate with more people, and to work with individuals that you may have been too busy for before. You know what I mean? I mean, I tell you what.
There's a. I mean, the Minutemen days, you couldn't do this shit. You had to be in the same room with them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can trade these files, so it would have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
As far as being able to do collabs. So I mean, in some ways, there are some, you know, things. It don't mitigate it all the way, but it helps, especially on the creative thing. I think the Blue Oyster Cult is making their first album in 20 years.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, there's two cats left, right?
Well, it's Buck and yeah.
Yeah, Eric Bloom and Buck Donner. I got to play with them once, about 5 years ago. Yeah, they were in town. There's some Art Deco theater in Beverly Hills on Wilshire, near La Cienega, just east.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know. I saw the Zombies do Odyssey and Oracle there.
Okay, I got to see them in New York City with Colin and Rod Argent.
Oh yeah.
Might be my fucking sister. Calls. That's one thing about these times. She calls afternoon. Let me tell her I'm doing a spiel here. But the Blue Oyster Cult was a big band with me and D Boon. What? Melinda, your brother, I'm doing an interview right now, okay? When I get done, I call you back. Out. She's a year and a half younger. She lives in Pedro. She's a junior high teacher.
Okay. It's good work.
I got another sister, too, lives up in Silver Lake that's younger than both of us, and she teaches high school.
Okay.
Anyway, the Blue Oyster Cult, when we were boys, I mean, D Boon got his name from E Bloom, you know. We saw them maybe 10 times. We kind of fell out after maybe Agents of Fortune.
Well, that happens.
I remember that song, Godzilla. You know, it's not their fault. They're old. In fact, I had Joe Bouchard, the bass man, and Albert was his brother on the drums. I got to be friends and had him on the show. But, I mean, you know, things when you're younger. The first gig I went and saw was T-Rex.
Was that your gig?
Yeah, we were 14.
Okay. What was that like? I mean, I was...
The Long Beach Auditorium, it's torn down now. It's where the Long Beach Opera House is. But this was kind of a small... You know, we didn't know about clubs.
Right.
So this was like an auditorium. So maybe 3,000, couple thousand.
That's big.
In fact, in the back of the places where they filmed, I don't know if you're less young enough to remember Don Kirshner rock concert.
Okay, yeah.
They filmed those there.
One of my first dollar bin record store finds that I treasured was a Don Kirshner Rock Power, like number 37 or something. And it's just like, I love that stuff. 100% love it.
He put out records of you know, this is the guy who created the Monkees.
Yeah. Turned down Rodney Bingenheimer and so many other folks to not be in that show.
Is that right?
Yeah, Rodney was gonna be. I talked to Rodney because I see him occasionally. I used to see him a lot over at.
Oh, he was big too. He was like, because he was the first guy to play punk on the radio.
Yeah, and now he's got the show on Little Stevens. I see him sometimes at Canner's Deli on Tuesday night.
That's the satellite?
No, Cantor's over in Fairfax. The satellite.
Oh, I know where that is. But
yeah.
you said Little Steven. I thought he had that satellite.
Oh, yeah.
this gig on Randall Island for him, and it was called the Garage, Underground Garage.
Yeah, Little Steven's Underground Garage. He's got Rodney Bingenheimer. He's got
Molina.
Really cool cats on there.
Mm-hmm. Right, but you got to have the account. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I will say, Little Steven puts out his shows for free. You can check them out for free. But to get the whole
Does
thing,
he have a website?
Yeah, there's a website that you have on your phone. And I'll tell you this: one of my favorite things, and one of the reasons that I started doing this was one of the things that I missed from playing shows is all the shit talk, all the storytelling. Like half of rock and roll is the folklore, right? Just like you get some people in a room telling stories. And that's one of my favorite things about Little Steven's Underground Garage, his actual show, is all the snippets in between the music where he just tells you like all of these really wonderful things just from forever. And you can actually catch that all on there's like an app that he has. So you don't even need to
played with Bruce Springsteen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's part of the E Street Band. He's the lead guitar player. And between that...
he goes back.
Yeah.
I think they had...
he's also got his...
For a while. Who would bounce on the trampoline. What's his name?
Oh, I don't know. I know you're talking about...
Yeah, there's... Maybe played on some Bowie records.
And wasn't he also part of the...
I mean, they're all good musicians. I can't remember. God, I can't think of his name now. But
the Dictators.
We did that festival that he was doing. This was like in 2006. A while ago. It's this island off of Manhattan that they used for a dump, and they turned into a park.
Right.
And he had a lot of bands from the 60s. And they'd only do 2 or 3 songs. Like they had the guy who started playing electric guitar with the bow. They were called The Creation.
Okay.
Jimmy Page's.
Right.
A couple songs. They had all these bands. And so I knew his deep. He had the Dolls with Syl and David. I got to say hi to David.
Nice.
Oh, thank you. I said, wow, thank you. Yeah. I listened to DeKel. You're right about the stories. You got to know about this stuff. So
you have to know.
Handed down. DeKel told me they got the idea of the CBGB from what Dolls did with that Mercury Arts Center. Said everybody knew once a week where to meet. It's going to be the same trip, and kind of build community.
And that's what it's all about, the community. It's about that regularity, and it's about that understanding. And you got to know where you come from, right? Because we're going to face.
We're missing the pads and going to gigs and But we do have some other ways to connect. Like you're doing this here, and they're totally like pissing. I mean, because we got there's all kinds of fucked hands we can get dealt.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, there's one that's gathering momentum, ready to take us all out. These people, pretty scary times in some ways.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Like
Halloween's gonna come a little later. A couple weeks later.
Like a week, like 1 week later. Not even.
I've done a lot of Halloweens.
Yeah?
To me, yeah. It's only recently I haven't played on Halloween, last couple. I made a point to do it because when I was more younger, it seemed like my favorite holiday. It's like the one day all year we admit that we wear costumes.
Yeah.
And so even if I couldn't find one, I'd get a pumpkin and cut the bottom out. I got this idea. El Duce is the first guy I saw do, and just cut the bottom out. Kind of realistic. And do the gig. And it's hard to see where your fingers are, where the mic is.
That's part of the fun, right? I mean,
part of the fun is if it lands on a Monday, you do it on Monday. You don't do it on the fucking Friday or Saturday.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I remember I played like that where like like it was on a Wednesday, and they try to throw the Halloween party like November 2nd. You know who comes to that? Fucking nobody. Nobody's coming to the Halloween party.
Be a government holiday for the memorial, or so you get the 3-day weekend. But these days are weird.
Well,
You know
it's
what
all
I mean?
now.
They're weird. They're there to break up those other things. It's not like you're all brain dead just because it came on a Monday. But these aren't Mondays. They get switched to Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
And I think they get a little gelded when that happens. A little neutered.
No, absolutely. You know, I'd rather celebrate it if it's on a Monday, it's on a Tuesday. Like, you got to do it the day of. Like, if it's a thing, you got to enjoy it when it's happening, right? Like, why fake the fun?
Yeah. I don't know. You know, what's the idea? You know, they call holiday in England the vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Like 2 weeks on holiday.
They use like a French word for it, but they have this word holiday. So it's a day, where we call like Halloween a holiday. They've got one like that. It's kind of like the 4th of July, too. It's called Guy Fawkes.
Oh, Guy Fawkes, right. With the mask.
Parliament. So they celebrate that. It didn't happen. And, you know, humans are trippy.
Absolutely.
Whatever we need to do. I mean, that's the whole idea of gigs. You're making a holiday there. We're going to play. We're going to celebrate.
No, absolutely. I love the show is meaningful. You know, like whenever there's a show, like I feel like one of the lessons I learned at a young age, and let me know what you think about this, was once I realized that the show was important. Like it wasn't just, hey, it's me and my friends going out to the club. Like it's like this is an event. Like somebody's putting on pants. They got to go deal with people. You know, like they could be sitting eating pizza on the couch. Like somebody made a commitment. You know what I mean? To come out and like have a good time.
There's a lot of ways. I remember this guy asking G.G. Allen, you know, what's the point? You're going to kill yourself on? No, that ain't the point. He said, the point is how many motherfuckers am I taking out with me? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, when I go out on a tour, number one, I'm going to get my guys back safe. But then, yeah, the gig goers, man, you're going to try to give them, right?
Yeah.
You're going to set up some of their work money to go and watch. Yeah.
I mean, that might be the only somebody gets.
You better not sleepwalk. Yeah.
You know, I mean, for instance, like I've seen you play. You know, we've had a show together at the House of Machines last summer. It was my drummer Becky's birthday party downtown LA, and I've seen you play a couple other times. And like one thing I say with you is like it's always like a thing. Like I've seen you do. I saw you at the over at like the Queen Mary doing something with the Iron and Wine with those with Iggy, and I've seen you.
I did it with Stooges.
Yeah.
The first time was actually in front of the Queen Mary with Ronnie.
Yeah.
And my ma saw that. It's the only time my ma saw me with the Stooges. I served 125 months with Stooges. That one you're talking about was with James Williamson. I like that one. Actually, him and who did he come with? He came to the first, he didn't come to play, but it might have been the Piano Man on Metallic KO. He ended up playing with Tom Petty. Scott Thurston.
Okay.
Scott Thurston. And yeah, I'll tell you, something happened at that gig in 2004 at Queen Mary. We were doing Dirt, and I was smoking cigarettes in those days. And I remember I started smoking in that song like a fuck. Scotty does a little intro, you know. And they came up to me and pulled that cigarette and threw it on the ground and stomped on it. And I never smoked on stage again.
Really?
And then later with James Williamson one, I stopped the last year, 2013. So it's been 7 years now. Which kind of helps with this kind of sickness, right? You don't want your lungs weak.
Right.
Yeah, but Yeah, again, it's gigs as a reference. I can tie around. Also, that saying, it was called Altamar's Party. It was a festival. Like the one you saw was kind of a tattoo festival.
Yeah, I think it was like
This one
Iron.
was a little different. It was mostly in England, but they'd have a couple here. Because there was one I did at UCLA and then this one talking about here. And me and George, he actually played in the boat aft, poop deck. But down under, it wasn't, there's people. I remember it was just us two doing Minutemen tunes as a duet.
Oh, really?
And yeah, because the boss asked me to do something like that. I guess they were doing something, a drumbo for Captain Beefheart. And I said, man, we can't stick a pill under somebody's shirt and pretend he's D Boon. But if you want us to try to do these songs, what about me and Georgie just tried? And so what was trippy was the gig goers filled in D Boon's guitar parts. I remember we did Toadies, where me and Georgie stopped. You could hear them all going, cheek, 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 cheek. These were people not, Minutemen days was the older, it wasn't 70s, but it was the early 80s
Right.
hardcore. And there ain't a lot of cats around from those days. And
No.
Yeah, less from the 70s days, but I mean, that's the way it works out. But but people knew. Man, that was only 8 miles from my pad. I could have kayaked over.
You a big kayaker?
In the old days, well, last couple of years with a bad knee, not so much. It's hard for me to get it in and out of the water. In the water, no problem, because it's waist up.
Sure.
I've done it since the early 2000s. See, in the old days, all the gigs were in Hollywood. Pedro's 30 miles south.
Right.
Just the idea. Even during Minutemen days, D Boon started putting on gigs in Pedro, so we wouldn't have to have the hell rides. And you were talking about downtown. I think that pad, unfortunately, had to close.
Yeah, it
the
did.
way the situation is now. But there's people living downtown now. In the days where that is, in the older days, the only thing that was like that was Al's Bar for about 20 years. And there was a tail on top of it and some artist stuff. But this whole kind of thing where people are living downtown and they had the gigs. I mean, actually, there's hardly any Hollywood gigs. I mean, of course not now, but even before this thing, the Hollywood thing was kind of going down. And
Yeah.
it was more out, right? SoCal's 150 towns, really.
Right. Yeah, but you get it. You get the guys up. Get them up in.
They try to do a little Manhattan downtown, yeah. There's people
Yeah.
live.
Get,
that was so much different than the older days to see young people walking around on the street. But to be able to walk to a gig like the Redwood Bar and Grill.
love the Redwood. I was going to say that. Love, Ed there.
In the alley right next with Smell.
Yep.
That was good sound there, but man, I love that guy. He's a great cat. I think they want to tear it down and make a parking lot or something.
Yeah, they're fighting that thing. It's been saving the Smell for 3 years now, I think. Something like that,
Something like that. They've been fighting.
Yeah. I think I've played at least, yeah. And sad to see some of these venues go, like the fact.
Yeah, some of that's part of the situation, though.
Yeah, and you got with the satellite just closed, the Spaceland.
Yeah, I know. I had a guy on my show a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it was in July. From who books the Zebulon.
Okay.
And he was telling me the sitch. But I kind of know.
Yeah.
Of course. Luckily I saved, and when you do this for this long, you never know. So you always, I was my papa's a sailor, so Econo wasn't just a abstract. It's not just a slogan, it's a way of life. So I've been able to, but I can imagine when, gigs venues. And, oh, man. But
You got some good venues down there in San Pedro, though. Like, I mean, fun
oh,
spot, neighborhood spot.
Sardine, right? Todd's trying to get this thing going. Right when he gets going, I think we played the second gig that all this came down. So a little bad luck. But, you know, we'll get going. I say nothing was canceled. You know, it's all postponed.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get over this.
And you calling that what, sardines? Because I've been to, what is it?
It's called The Sardine.
The Sardine.
Well, there's also what you're probably thinking of is this warehouse where they brew beer.
No, I'm talking about this, like, it's like a dive bar, a couple pool tables and whatnot.
Oh, place.
They got the
early 50s, yeah.
Yeah, they got the backdrop of like the beach.
Harold's Place on Pacific at 19. Actually, across the street in the alley is where the Minutemen started.
Okay.
40 years ago from that pad. Yeah. You play in front of the pool tables. You play on the deck. That's Harold's Place. And it was started by a guy named Harold who was running it until, you know, not too long ago. This guy, an older guy, you know, I think it's opened in 53. And it really amazed me that maybe in the early 2000s, gigs started there. You know, people got a lot more looser. It wasn't like the old days. There was a lot of uptight shit about this scene. Fucked up.
Really?
A lot of prejudice. Oh, you don't know.
No, I don't know.
Well, you don't want to. There were people. Look, I played a pad in Amarillo, in Texas, where Little Richard was arrested for taking his shirt off. I mean, you know, just if you're in the wrong time, wrong place, you don't need even a virus for people to be fucked up in the head.
Right.
You know, they get all uptight about things, your look or your songs or I don't know, beats per minute. You know what it is. High heels, your fishnet, stiletto heels. You know, funny names. That whole thing. Yeah, and then the jocks are painting their fingernails. Yeah. So things are a lot more calm. So places like Harold's Place, it's putting on gigs. But there's a place called Bowery West.
Okay.
Now, yeah, it's a warehouse. Most of the warehouses got torn down because we got cans now. You don't need warehouses except fumigate fruit. And maybe they were using some for some storing textile. But even that one's turned into out to sea. We're making a maritime institute here. And they're already growing mussels. But a couple of the warehouses that they saved, one turned into a crafted kind of thing where people, you know, real life version of Pinterest or something. And then the other one is they brew beer and they put on gigs. Played there.
Now it's called
I played there opening for X. The problem with Pedro, we're kind of at the end of the road, whereas downtown you guys are in the middle. So, but you know, when we get the transpo thing down, it won't matter. You know, there was a thing called the red car. You know about this?
Oh, yeah. I know about it from...
One of the lines ended here in Pedro, like Walker Cafe, down by Point Furman, right at the end where the cliffs are. That was the last garage. You could ride for a dime from Santa Ana to Santa Monica to Riverside to Pedro. You know, it was these, we're talking the 20s and 30s and shit, all the way up till 1960, and they sold it for buses.
Yeah, I learned.
You ever
about
wonder
that.
why some streets are real wide, like Santa Monica? You got little Santa Monica or a Hawthorne. Yeah, because the red car ran right down the middle of these things.
Yeah.
Just the land rights now that they gave away is like millions of dollars. They're trying to build it now. One, you know, gold line, blue line.
Yeah.
At that time, but we kind of had it. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I learned about that.
Humans are slow learners. But when it, what my point was, whatever's your local gig can be anybody's gig. You know, maybe we don't have to wait for Scotty to get that transporter room fixed.
Yeah. You know, like, I'm hoping that, you know, it's interesting that you were seeing a lot of the clubs, a lot of the old clubs are going down, but I don't think that's going to stop people from wanting to do gigs, wanting to go see shows, wanting to get out in their house and shake their hips and have a good time. Someone's going to, these old rooms, these clubs, these people, like, things are going to continue to happen one way or the other. Like, where there is a need, where there is a will, there will be a way. I mean, I don't know how hopeful you feel about it, but I'm awfully optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got to be a little smarter the next time it comes. These bugs are going to keep coming back. I don't think we're going to conquer them all the way. We have incredible kind of stuff, but things are going to come up, and we got to be resilient enough that we can bounce. What would Muhammad Ali call it? Rope-a-dope. You got to bounce off the ropes and shit. Get the rope-a-dope going sometimes, and that just gets so bummed out. I think King Lear was written during a lockdown like 400 years ago. Say new shit. You know what I mean? So, of course, if I'm optimistic, and if it don't happen, then, you do it another way. They never brought, in Pedro, we got a union ice building. Refrigerators put the ice machines kind of out, not ice machine, but the ice man.
Right.
Right. Sometimes those kind of things happen. I was reading about 1939. There was 30,000 swing bands touring the U.S.
Really?
And now, in those, you had to carry, 9, 10, 12 guys?
Yeah, you got to have a bus.
Can you imagine what the competition, that must have been cutthroat.
It must
have been terrible. Yeah. And then when records came out, oh my God, who wants to hire the band? They can play the record. So a lot of these guys boycotted recording. See, we have short-term memories. So we don't know, and shit, like you say, about the stories. They don't get handed down.
Right.
So the thing new is you finding out about it.
Yeah, and I love hearing about them. I think it's vital. It's absolutely got to be passed down. I mean, we had a guy on the show.
Yeah,
Jeff.
the touring scene was very intense in the 30s, and you couldn't have just a trio. Oh man, it must have been hell. It must have been really. And coming out of depression. What about the depression?
Yeah, and those cats ain't getting paid that well. If you got 4 players in the band, it's
that's
like
what I'm saying. Yeah.
How much is everybody pulling down? A sandwich and like some coffee? Like it can't be much.
Yeah, you think people were nice? Some people were nice to each other, but I bet you there was a lot of cutthroat bullshit. And this is the test. I mean, can we stay humans when things get rough? Or we go and stoop and grab for the short and curlies?
Yeah.
That's a weird kind of test in a way.
I think we're seeing people make a real big stand choosing one side of the room or the other. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's a bucket brigade with half the guys not wanting to pass the bucket.
No, I hear you.
That's kind of weird. Because they think, whatever they think.
No, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Let me tell them.
I love it.
That's the kind of way it is. Trying to do bucket brigade, and half the guys won't do buckets. They think it's a fake.
You're talking about the stories and the folklore and like putting stuff together, and I think some of the stuff that I really enjoy about that. I mean, I love hearing the stories about with you and Mascis getting together and doing and putting that thing together. But I'd be really interested to hear more about like across the street from Harold's. You putting the Minutemen together, like I'm just. What was
it was
like
Deep Pad.
Is that what was his dad?
1980, and he was in the Reactionaries with me to do me a favor. He wouldn't write any songs. This was going to be the real band. He had a buttload of songs. He had a drummer guy he'd met at Harbor College, welder named Frank Tonchi. He said, but first we're going to get the tunes together, and then we'll show them. So we're up, it's upstairs apartment, so we don't want to. Although we find out downstairs, actually turns out to be Joe Biza, even though he's a Wilmington dude. He came and moved to Pedro with Gary Jacoby. And because it was the same 100 people every weekend at the gigs. You didn't know these people, but you kind of know. Same faces. Anyway, we don't want to bug anybody, so we're getting the first batch of tunes together, and we got to hold the beat. There's no drummer, and we don't use amps on the bass or the guitar. Just sitting on D Boon's bed, strumming, singing, but we're stomping to keep the beat. And some of this shit's hours and hours. And later, Joe Baez asked me if we were dancing up there. So, we got the whole thing. Yeah. Jay Mascis, that was different. That was him asking me to help him out with his solo record where he recorded everything. And I was in a bad place. I had just come out of sickness that almost killed me. Only 42 years old. It was a hell ride, man. 38 days of this fever and this infection grew in me, blew up, had to cut me open at county, saved my life. Did many tours to pay that off. 32,000. But anyway, part of getting back on the horse and riding again was helping Jay out with that Jay Mascis and the Fog tour. But that had its own consequence. Because when we came to Ann Arbor, a couple of years before that, I got to record a movie soundtrack with Rod Ashton, Steve Shelley, Thurston, Don Fleming, for this movie Todd Haynes did called Velvet Goldmine. And, hey, Jay says, Ronnie, why don't you call him up? Because Ronnie would come see Minutemen, play Detroit. It was the Blind Pig, and Ronnie comes down. Jay asks him to come on tour. This is probably why I ended up doing 130 weeks with the Stooges.
That's probably good though. Like, it sounds like, that is a long, that's a long time, and no one coming from like where you were coming from, getting over that shit. Like, being on stage can get some of the funk out, right? Like that gets you clear the cobwebs and put some. I'm always a big fan of, like, if you got some dark time, the best way to get over it is put some good time between you and that darkness. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that being out on having 130 weeks, like that's got to give you the opportunity of putting some space in some
months. If I said weeks, I fucked up.
Months.
Yeah, first one was Coachella in 2003, March. Last was September 2013.
Yeah.
So, and I tell you, Stooges gigs was different. For Jay, with Jay, I never heard one note. He played really loud. Beautiful musician, though. Great cat. And I was still recovering from the sickness. I could have played better for him. With the Stooges, and I really wanted to, but like with the Stooges, it's almost like something inside me was like, you have to give these guys your best notes. It's not like Jay was some kind of second-class cat.
Right.
And, before that, I helped out the Porno guys. Porno for Pipe. Those were the first three kind of bands I helped, because I didn't do much of that. But especially with the if there was no Stooges, we wouldn't even had a movement.
Yeah.
She told them everything, but love the Porno songs, love Jay's songs, but they weren't in my fabric as much as probably, because it goes back to being a teenager, a boy.
Yeah.
But you're not there to listen, man. You're there to help make it be. So there's responsibility, man. You can't fuck it up, man. I had this dream. I want to be buried at sea anyway, but I had this nightmare where there was this gravestone, and all it says on the gravestone was "fucked up a Stooges gig." I didn't want that.
No, you can't have that on your.
I'd watch Iggy like most of the time. I check in with the other cats, Scotty. Scotty'd always have kind of shades on, so it was hard to get the whole host. And Ronnie had shades too, but they were kind of yellow. I could see his co-host.
You see guys.
Brother Steve. You know, these guys. I was finally the youngest guy in the band. It was, you know, I never had an older brother. It was really a trippy experience for me. And so them gigs, they seemed like they were 5 minutes long. I mean, they were a fucking total rush. And they would beat the shit out of you. I mean, I played faster than Minutemen. I played fast, you know, as far as beats per minute. Although Iggy had us, and like no break except to clear the stage during the invasion. It was a working man set. I swear, I mean, I'd cramp up and sweat the outfit. It'd tear me up. But, man, it was worth it because you were part of a Stooges gig. To be able to help the Stooges, them tunes, those guys, it was really interesting, really a trip. I mean, Jay, the Porto guys, I loved helping them too. But there was another trip about that. Maybe because like we were kind of their children or something, you know? Whereas Jay and Pear, they're kind of Perk with, I'm part of their.
Sure, it's the passing of the guard. Like those.
Because those guys, they invented the punk that we were. They didn't have a word for it yet.
Yeah,
We're already doing it though. They, and Cap Beefheart, Little Richard, and all that. It's like going to the well.
Yeah,
It's not somebody handing you a glass from a pitcher, from a bucket. You know, it's like going right to the fucking well. It was very, very, probably the more luckiest thing that happened to me in my life was meeting D Boon, but that's right there. Also Pear, Jay, and you know, and all the musical situations, getting to play with you guys, you know, just getting to do a gig, you know,
yeah,
just getting to you know, the idea of expressing yourself through you know, doing it with your dudes.
no, absolutely. You know, I mean,
It's like, you know, that's why they call it playin. That's
yeah.
why I say when you're not playing, you're doing practice. I've yet to hear a basketball player say, you know, I'm going to go rehearse some hoops. You don't rehearse hoops. I mean, and so that's the way it is in a way. I mean, you have to do the prac alone on the prac pad with your guys. But the real prac is out in front of the people doing the gig. You need one really to do the other, but and man, especially with James Williamson, we would go, me and Scotty, and then later Larry, go up to his room and we'd do the whole set. You know, just beating on the bed.
Oh yeah,
Big nose amp, getting ready.
love a pig. Oh man, you just brought me back.
Yeah, somebody typed it. I don't know where it is, but it's donated. Maybe somebody's using it. But I remember getting that ready. So I actually did 2 Stooges gigs with the James Williamson version. And but the other one with Ronnie, we'd get there a couple hours before, and yeah, I'd work out stuff on the bass. Mainly it was doing laps with Ronnie, carving a moat, you know, 2 hours, because Iggy would he'd have the microphone, you know, and getting ready, going through the whole set. This is what I loved about these guys, man, especially Iggy, his work ethic. I mean, we're here to do a gig. I remember one time we came off this racetrack in Donington, England. He goes, Mike, I feel like a short order cook. Like I got to get everybody's order. Like, you want fries? You want shake? What flavor?
Yeah.
Into each dude at the gig. And, you know, I can't ever go back to how I got into music to be with my friend. You know, he got killed, you know. But there's other things that can be really important too. And I found that with Stooges, playing with Stooges. And I'm missing, man, my second man. All the guys I've gotten to play with, they all taught me stuff.
I learn from everybody. I mean, you build a family, right? With the people. You know what I'm saying? Like they all become.
Especially bass. We're kind of like glue. So if you don't have the other dudes, you're kind of just a puddle.
Yeah, you know, as somebody that.
You need to stick things too, you know?
Yeah,
It's
you
a
need.
trippy, mysterious machine. D. Boone's mother put me on it. I didn't know what it was. We were 12. But I'm really grateful to her. It's an interesting way to fit in and keep things like an interesting classroom. Even if it's your fucking band, you're still backing up your dudes.
Yeah.
The politics of bass is so trippy that way. You look good, making your guys look good. And I don't find anything wrong with that.
No, I mean,
Quite okay.
you know, there's a lot of, you know, whether it's John Paul Jones or Phil Lynott. I mean, the basses can fill all sorts of stuff. I played
Still
bass
lying. Yeah.
so many different
Now Paul
bands.
Jones is a good bass player too. Yeah.
Yeah, but they feel like different roles, but they're still doing the same thing. Like it wouldn't be that, you know, it's what's taking something from the heartbeat of what that kick drum is doing, and giving some context to what that guitar player is doing. Like there's something. It's a position of service that you also get to just have. I've always thought it's probably the most fun. Like for us, for instance, the Cakes. Our bass player is this guy named Rick Torres, right? Now Rick Torres was the lead
Yeah, I
guitar.
met Rick.
Rick was lead guitar player for the English Beat for like 12 years or something like that. And I think he says he has more fun doing the bass thing and filling that spot for him right now. Like that is just, it's a different role. It's a different spot in the family. You know, it's a different
Well,
muscle.
yeah, I mean, well, here's the confusing thing about it. Maybe part of it. It looks like a guitar, but the reality on the dealio, it's kind of more like a drum.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds definitely are where the kick is and the toms. You know, when you do the Larry Graham thing, you can get a kick snare kind of trip going. It's mysterious. It's mysterious. The idea of giving it big amplification, Family Man Barrett. You know, Paul Chambers, incredible bass man. You know, John Coltrane writes a song for him, but Paul Chambers ain't Family Man, you know, or the guy we all owe, James Jamerson.
Yeah.
It's that it makes the music move. Maybe this is why your bass man, kind of digs it, and maybe appreciates it too.
I
Now,
think,
you know, older days, people like Joe Osborne, we lost just a little while ago, and Carol Kay, she's still around.
yeah,
A lot of session people, right? And they were guitar players.
right.
Got into bass because no one wanted to rock it. So you could find work.
Yeah.
Starting with punk, I was meeting people starting on bass. That was the first time. Before that, it was all people who couldn't find gigs on guitar. And, well, you read about Jack Bruce, he comes from the cello. Jack Bruce had a huge influence on me. I think Joe Bouchard did some cello too. He's playing guitar now. You know, this whole thing about using machines to express yourself with sound. I mean, I saw a band next to the Echo, and these guys were sitting there, 4 of them, and they had crap tops and were just pushing the space bar. Not many times either. Probably at the beginning of the tune. and then at the end of the tune, and then their shadow up against the video. But that's the way
it gets it done, right? Like I've always thought about it. I heard this quote from, I heard this interview with Tom Waits once, and he was just saying like, we're just trying to move some air in a room till it means something to somebody. And we got shapes and sounds and whatnot.
Well, the bass man was critical. He had this guy we just lost, Larry Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Before that, and because I did my first opera with Steve Hodges, guy I play with in MSV right now, with Mike Baguetta. He's Signal Hill guy, and he did Rain Dogs,
Okay.
Swordfish Trombone, and it's one of the reasons I picked him for the first opera because music. You're right. He's trying to get it out of the cliche. You know what I mean? That's the problem. Because what happens is when people get into autopilot, either playing or listening, you're out of the moment, and you're just
when it's like
right? You're just connecting the dots. And
when
you don't know how much time you got till you die. So it's kind of ridiculous. Heidegger was a fucking Nazi, but he did say we should spend some time. Italians like to eat picnics in graveyards, and they're, because we only got so much time. This year, I remember I took the big man on. Raul couldn't do this last tour I did in the fall, so I took big man. Right, this guy's a few months short of 40 years younger than me, and we did the sound check. He goes, "Oh, we got some time to kill," and I looked at him like, we don't.
Yeah.
Now he's 22 years old. He was same age me, Boon, and Georgie were when we started Minutemen. He's a man. But even when you're 62, like I am now, there's still a buttload to learn, man. So we kind of need that time. There ain't really that much time to kill.
I love it.
That's our mind, though. I think our mind does that to keep from being afraid.
Yeah, you gotta have
If you're
purpose.
worried about that shit, you know what I mean? You drive yourself crazy, right?
Yeah, no, you gotta do it, and like I think that's something that I found is a difference in these people I've been talking to. There's some cats like, especially in what's going down right now, right? There are people that, like for me right now, like if I go over to my side, like I've got this guy right next to me, and I'm just sitting on my couch, right? Like I've just got paintbrushes and like work around me, you know what I mean? Like there are people that live and breathe in it, and then that like are sitting around, putting on weight, watching things, and hey, look, man, it's not my place to tell you how to enjoy your life, but I think some of us are motivated by other things, and
well, one thing I learned about through music, there's a couple ways to do it. And the main lesson is taking turns. You can collaborate, which can be a couple ways. I write some songs, you write some songs. You can come up with an idea and say, hey, you want to come and help me realize that? So you be the shot caller, give direction. You can take like in Stooges, right? You can take direction. I was going to tell those guys how to play their songs.
Yeah.
But all of it's valid. All of it's valid. And I think it's important to do all of them. Take turns doing each. Otherwise, you get resentful. Right? There's this thing called Sidemanitis.
Yeah.
And there's this other thing. I mean, though, a lot of the conventional thinking, if you're the boss, you're winning. But actually, if you're the boss, there's things you're never going to learn because you're always getting your fucking way. So, you know what I mean? So it's about taking turns.
No, you 100%.
Maybe I should do that more with the different instruments, but what I do it more is the role of the band. Sometimes shot callers, sometimes I take the calls, sometimes I collab. I just did an album with these two Italian guys, Stefano and Paolo Bologna, called Il Sogno di Marinaio. We did third album, and I only wrote 2 songs on there of 8. But it's a really interesting place. to be part of. The band, the ensemble is a trippy thing. Usually if I got my name in the band, like Miss Man, Second Man, I do that so you know who to blame. Yeah, okay, right. Not color. That was my opera. That was for the second opera. That was for the third opera. But when they have like kind of a name, that's more either their trip or we're coming together to do a collab. Sometimes, you take the place of the dead guy and do the old songs, like with Stooges, or another guy that's not available, like Jay or Peter, Perk, or just I did last summer with Flipper.
Yeah.
And to get to do the good old songs is bitchy. But then, like with Mike Baguette and Steve Hodges, his proj, MSV, SV, Main Steam Stop Valve. It's the first time ever where I've had a dude write me bass lines that aren't from their new songs. So here I thought I knew all the ways to be in a band. Nope, there's still another way, Watt.
Another way, yeah.
There's another way. Now, with this trading files over the internet, you can be part of collabs big time. Not even meet people, just totally engage with them musically. I've made whole albums with people, never even met them. Doesn't matter because you share that way. And that's a righteous thing. The one thing we could get a little further on is somehow being able to play with instead of trading files, play with each other in real time without latency.
Yeah.
That's the next goal.
I've seen
we could do stuff like that. See, because, in the old days, you could make excuses why you can't get together with people. See, we're getting fewer and fewer of these. Like, you know what? Yeah, sitting on your hands, right? Like during this thing here, I got some friends, the Galaxtasy people. Maybe you know them. They live out in the desert. They had a residency in Chinatown right before this came down. And Raquel and drummer man, they did 8 albums. And a buddy of mine, Ollie in England, just did his 5th album. And I mean, a lot of it's because, that's not totally, they collab. These are collabs, and we can do this because of internet access. But I imagine those people like Carol Kay and Joe Osborne in the 60s, they're on Birds records and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Beach Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They didn't let people play on their own records until like a little later. And so these guys were doing, I think Hal Blaine's on 50,000 songs. The thing is, Earl Palmer's on 30,000, right? Guy who played with Little Richard. The thing is, there was a little group. Now we got, right? It's almost like talking. Like just because you can talk and use language to converse with people, does that make you a genius? If you got your guitar there, right? You got your paintbrush. The arts, I think, are getting more and more. We just got to get over these hurdles in our heads, the Berlin Walls in our brains. There's all these excuses why we can't get these collabs going.
Yeah, and with the world it is now, like we're just breaking that thing down. And Instagram has an hour long that we can do this, so it's telling me we got about a minute left before they're going to shut us down because that's the limitation that the world of the playground got. But
as long as they don't jump on the fucking horn and tell us what to say. No, it's like me using a payphone in the old days. AT&T wasn't that indie of a company, okay? But as long as they didn't jump on the phone,
Yeah, now they're going to cut us off, you know what I mean?
That's all right.
I just want to say, before we get cut off.
Honored to be aboard and talk. These are good things to talk about.
Yeah, this is what we got to do, right? Like, I mean, just as much as making stuff, it's about communicating, it's about connecting, it's about telling the stories, it's about letting people see the real people and everything, because it's so much more than just the things you put down on tape.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we talk, man, say goodbye in a polite and respectful way. I really appreciate your time, my man. You stay cool down there in Pedro, and one of these days we'll run into each other again, I'm sure.
Oh, I know it. Remember,
All
what
right.
part of LA? Oh, my mayor is your mayor. We got the
That's
same mayor.
right.
30 miles, 25 miles away, but we're same mayor. And safe seas. And keep that keel in the water.